Hey everybody, Will here, and I am here with the completed engine. And the next step, of course, is going to be to take this engine out of here and load it into the car, start it, and start driving. But before we do that, I thought we'd do one last quick little video to kind of talk briefly about the engine, as the last video was kind of a little bit lacking in the information department. But most of the stuff that you saw me do in the last video included just installing all these accessories, a lot of which just came straight off of the old engine to get bolted onto this new engine after it was cleaned, of course. So as you all already know, this engine originally started out as a 1776cc engine that got moved up to a 2110cc engine, but there were a couple of components that we added onto it to hopefully give it more performance as well. The first of which would be these new carburetors. Now, the old carburetors on here were a pair of 44mm Solex carburetors, and those were already a huge performance gain over the original carburation of this engine. The original carburetors on the Volkswagen Bug engines were much smaller than they probably should have been. So that was probably one of the first things a lot of people do to increase the performance on these. Now, the last ones were actually really great. It's probably one of the best bangs you can get for your buck. They were about $500, and these are a little bit more expensive. They were about $1,000 for the pair, but they're quite a bit more powerful. As I said, those were 44mm Solex carburetors. These are dual 44mm Weber carburetors. So the 44mm carburetors that were on the old engine were a single 44mm wide passageway for the air and fuel to get sucked into the engine. These new carburetors have one for each cylinder, so two on each side, 4 total. So that should allow it to give about twice as much air and fuel into each cylinder. Another great benefit to these carburetors is that each carburetor can be adjusted independently for the cylinders, whereas the last one, you kind of had to balance them out for the pair of cylinders. They would get split down here and go into each cylinder. These ones, each single one can be fine-tuned for its specific cylinder, which will make a big difference specifically when it's idling. It'll be much smoother. And then it also should give you some better performance in terms of fuel economy as well. So that was one of the biggest performance upgrades, in addition to the increased displacement for this engine. And you can see this linkage here is what kind of joins them. The throttle cable actually passes through the fan shroud. There's a small hole here and gets attached to here, and then this linkage has them operate. And so that's one thing that's going to have to be adjusted and fine-tuned before we start the car, and then actually when we start the car for the first time. Now, the other big upgrade for this engine isn't so much a performance upgrade, but it is an upgrade in the quality of the parts, is this exhaust system. Now, I was actually really liked the old exhaust system that was on it. I have it right here. This I got from CIP1.com. And I think it was called a dual zoom exhaust system by Bug Pack. And if you look at a lot of Baja bugs and the original Beetle 2, most of the time they have all the exhaust pipes going and meeting together here, and then it has a header of some sort. And usually with Baja bugs, it's a stinger, which is a single pipe that kind of points upwards. And I kind of wanted a more traditional looking exhaust system for this. And so what I did is I went with a pair of these kind of larger dual horizontal pipe exhaust system, which first of all, I like the aesthetics of it, and also it sounded really cool, I figured out. So I was really happy with it. But the problem is, if you notice this one, the pipes have just rusted through completely. This end here is chromed, and even the chromed end is starting to rust a little bit and show a lot of wear. But the pipes have just completely rusted through. There's some holes even on one of the pipes. You can see here that I had to weld up a little bit. But they were just kind of falling apart. This new set, on the other hand, is ceramic coated, which is actually a much more durable finish than even the chroming. So these pipes, they're ceramic coated, and they go all the way through too, so the entire pipes are ceramic coated. And I'm not quite sure how those sound or anything, but hopefully they sound good. But it was the closest I could find to kind of that one, while still having this higher quality ceramic finish. And then the last change that came to the engine was also, some of you may notice that this fan shroud looks a little bit different. Now, the fan shroud, underneath it is a large fan that is run off this belt, which of course pumps air through the shroud and back here in the very back We have an oil cooler tucked away, which is the main way that these engines shed their heat in a stock VW. I have another oil cooler that is on the roof, but there's the oil cooler back there, and then it forces air down through these other tins, past the cylinders and past the cylinder heads, which are lined with these fins. But that was the original system. And some of you may notice that the fan shroud before, just to show you, looked a little bit more like this, which is the stock fan shroud that came on it, and it had these two ducts here. Now these ducts were originally included on the car because they were another outlet for air, and the air basically passed out of these ducts and went through this device, which is called a heater box. Now these are actually part of the exhaust system. You can see the flange right here is where it bolts to the cylinder heads, and the hot exhaust air passes through this pipe, which is inside this device, and out here to connect to the rest of the exhaust pipe. Now you can notice these other ducts here, and as well as this linkage right here. And what that is it's part of the heating system for the car. So on a cold day, you would pull a lever, which would pull this vent, and it would let that hot air from by the exhaust pipes come into the car. The problem is it smelt horrible, like very fumey, and you just don't want to use them. So a lot of people pull that system out right away, partially because these are also very heavy. The exhaust portion of this is lined with thick steel fins that then is transferred to the air that goes into the cabin. And after a while, it just gets old and starts cracking, and oil leaks into the pipes, and it kind of becomes intolerable to use. So now my car doesn't have heat, but it lost a lot of weight, and you get rid of this whole big system. One thing I did with this fan shroud is I cut off these, because I bought it prior to making that decision. It had these little kind of ends on it. I chopped them off, cut these little patterns to kind of fit the aesthetics, the roundness of it, and bolted it on to cover the holes. So that is about it. Like I said, a lot of these other parts, like the distributor, the ignition coil, the alternator, are all off of the old engine. They just got a good cleaning and got bolted on, and they should work pretty much the same as before. Nothing was really wrong with them. Some people called me out on this, that I kind of cheaped out on the old pulley wheel here, which is true. But one thing I should have probably done for the video is it has a cover here that goes over it. But I'm gonna have to take it off to do the timing and everything. At the end of the day, that works just as good as a new one. So I thought I would stick with that one. That's it for this video. I do have one more video coming up next week. I'm gonna show you this 360 rig that I built just for this project. I'll probably use it for some other projects, but a lot of you had some questions, wanted to see how it works and everything, so I'm gonna do a quick video on that coming up for next week. And until then, thanks for watching.